One of the questions that you have to ask yourself when the time comes to be hit with a cyber attack with your organization, how many days can you go without having your systems online? How many days can you go without having the critical tools and resources to deliver the products or services to your customers? Hey, what's up? This is Jamal Abbott. Thanks for tuning in. Here to talk to you today about cybersecurity awareness. This is part 1 of 4 of a series covering cybersecurity fundamentals for businesses. This month is Cybersecurity Awareness Month for the month of October, and it's important, I feel, for us to just cover this topic at a high level so that way you can be armed with the tools, the knowledge, and the resources that you need to protect your business, to position yourself for success, and ultimately protect your customers and the folks that depend on you to perform different functions and operations. So with this one, we're talking about cybersecurity business fundamentals, and we'll just go ahead and jump right into this. One of the first things that we have to do is to understand the threat landscape. And when we're looking into the threat landscape, we need to understand this one basic principle. It's not a matter of if I'm going to get hit with a cyber attack, it's a when. And that when could happen at any time. And it's important for us to make sure that our businesses are positioned to not only be able to deflect or to diminish the attacks, but ultimately make sure that there's minimal damage or minimal activities that happen with this. One of the major cyber attacks that happened here recently in Las Vegas involved 2 hotel operators. This is public information. You can go ahead and Google this, but 2 major hotel operators on the Las Vegas Strip recently got hit with cyber attacks. One ended up paying a cyber ransom that was estimated to be somewhere around the $15 million range, and the other decided not to. With the other that did not decide to pay the ransom, the IT systems, the things that make the guest experience pleasant for these properties ended up being down for about 10 days. It was a huge disruption. We don't have the numbers that are out right now for how much they lost potentially during this time, but we can estimate it's more than likely several millions of dollars of damages that occurred from the cyber attack. So one of the questions that you have to ask yourself when the time comes to be hit with a cyber attack with your organization, how many days can you go without having your systems online? How many days can you go without having the critical tools and resources to deliver the products or services to your customers? And then with that, what disaster recovery procedures do you have in place if something like that were to happen to you? Can you go multiple days without being online and serving your customers? Or do you have contingencies in place that allows you to operate in a different area? Something to consider as you're thinking about cyber attacks possibly coming your way. So why are cyber attacks on the rise? And I think this is important to understand this because you'll get a pretty good understanding of the motivation and the insights into why these things are happening. And one of the things that I've preached about and I've talked about quite a bit is the importance of connectivity being an enabler for us to participate in the digital economy. So if you're an organization or if you're an individual, you realize that you're able to do a lot more things today because of the greater connectivity and the access to the internet, which allows us to do things that we weren't able to do several decades ago. With that increased technology and connectivity, that leads to a greater chance for exploitation for bad actors that are looking to compromise different systems or businesses. Because of this greater connectivity comes a greater chance of getting exploited. And then with that exploitation, there's also the next point I'll get into, which is the greater opportunity for thieves to actually take your data and then hold that up for ransom. What's interesting about this is that this data is often used, sold, and pretty much bartered, like on these secondary markets where funds are being exchanged for data that's been stolen. So you definitely don't want to be in that situation to where your data is being held ransom and then these individuals are trading that data which could have personal information for your customers, for your employees, or anything else that's proprietary to your business. So you don't want to be in that position to where you're wondering how you're going to get this data back. And let's just go back to the previous example I mentioned with the hotel operators on the Las Vegas Strip. Do you have the $1 million? Do you have large sums of cash available to you to pay a ransom? So if you're that small business or even that medium-sized business, you may not have those funds available to even think about paying for something like that. So that's just something to keep in mind, that these thieves are out there, they're stealing data, and then ultimately that data could be sold on these secondary markets. We know that individuals for different reasons are motivated by these things to try to exploit some of the smaller or larger size businesses, but money is a driving factor for these cybersecurity incidents, and it's a problem that's probably not going to be going away anytime soon. So one of the things that we can think about in all this is that, okay, we know that these cyber attacks are on the rise. We know that there's a possibility and a greater chance that you could be a target if you're not protected. So what can you do to ultimately prevent having something like this happen to your organization? And it goes back to just understanding where you're at. Where are you at in securing your business? Where are you at with the risk, the holes, the gaps? So ultimately, you need to understand where your business is at. And if you are one of those businesses that doesn't understand where you're at, well, you're just going to be continuing down the path of poor security practices. And that security practice could be nothing, and that makes you an easy target for these attackers. And that's something that we don't want for you. To prevent yourself from becoming an easy target, one of the easiest things that you can do as a first step is to have that conversation with a security professional. Now, the security professional can look at your environment, determine what apps are currently in use, and then determine the protections like firewalls, antivirus, intrusion protection systems, things of that nature. They can look at those things and then tell you what's currently working right, and then some other areas that you can improve upon. And then the way I look at this is that this is like a baseline that you can work off of. And it's okay if you don't have all these things lined up or have all these things figured out from the first get-go. But having that baseline and then being able to build on top of that is a great first step to improve your security posture. There's going to be some other strategies that can be used specific for your business or for your industry that's going to help mitigate some of the issues that you may be facing potentially. And then lastly, one of the best and I think the easiest thing that you can do for your business as a first step to resolve this problem with the lack of cybersecurity protections is to bring the cybersecurity awareness front and center to your business. From the frontline employees to the people in the C-suite, cybersecurity awareness is something that everybody has to be a part of, and is going to be the greatest line of protection that you can take to protect your business and assets. Going back to the issue in Las Vegas, the main problem with these hotel operators was the fact that it wasn't the security systems that they had in place. They were doing all those things correctly when it came to having the right IT systems in place, to having the protections. It was a social engineering attack which led to this compromise and to the interruption of this major hotel operator. So you have to make sure that cybersecurity is a part of everybody's responsibility, a part of everybody's job, and is ultimately going to protect your business and the customers that depend on your business. And just to bring this back home with one more example, I recently got a message from a client who had a question, said, "Hey Jamal, I got this funny email and they're asking me to click on this link and to apply some security fixes because of these different malware and cyber attacks that are happening." And the one thing that she was saying was that, this seemed kind of odd because this is the first time getting an email like this. And she understood also too that the IT organization normally it just applied these updates automatically. So for her to get an email like this just seemed completely out of the ordinary, and then she just wanted to double check with somebody just to make sure that she wasn't missing something. And that's one of the greatest things that you can do is to ask for help. If something seems fishy, if something doesn't seem right, or if you're just not sure, there's nothing wrong with taking 5 or even 10 minutes out of your time to ask for help, just to double check, just to make sure that you're not missing something. And then that can easily save you time, energy, and a huge headache if you happen to get hit with a social engineering attack or some other malware attack because somebody clicked on the link in an email that they weren't supposed to. While we're thinking about these things and just understanding that this is a vast and a multi-tier problem, there's not going to be one size solution that's going to cover all bases. Just like with us as individuals, every business is different. Every business has different applications and different processes that they use. And what one business uses to protect themselves is not necessarily going to apply to another business. But the one thing we can keep in mind is that these principles can be applied and tailored specifically to each business that's out there. As I wrap this up, just know that you can always ask for help. If you need it, get the professional's attention, reach out, seek whatever resources you can get your hands on, so that way you're not going at this alone. The stakes are way too high and the environments have gotten way too complex, from things running in the cloud, from environments being virtualized, for any one organization to tackle this alone. And you have tons of resources out there that can help you resolve this issue and to take on this problem. And with that, this concludes the episode. I thank you so much for tuning in and checking this out. Now, if you have any questions about anything that was discussed in this episode, feel free to hit me up on social media, or you can reach me at jamalabbott.com/contact, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have with that. Stay tuned for the second part of this 4-part series, and I will talk with you again soon.